Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, there's one gentleman or a person who is showing up as Zoom user. Could you please change your profile to reflect your name? But everybody else, the name reflects. We don't know who you are. Okay, so we are going to go on to the 7th verse. So Tanmay, could you please chant the next 4 verses, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Acharya, there's some work going on here, so I apologize for any background noises.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
Ya pranena sambhavati.
Ya pranena
sambhavati.
Aditir devatamayi.
Aditir devatamayi.
Guham pravishya tishthantim.
Guham pravishya tishthantim.
Ya bhute bhirvyajayata.
Ya bhute bhirvyajayata.
Etad vaitat.
Etad vaitat.
Aranyor nihito jatavedaha.
Aranyo jatavedaha.
Garbha iva subhrato garbhinibhihi.
Garbha iva subhrato garbhanibhihi.
Dive diva idyo jagravadbhihi.
Dive diva idyo jagravadbhihi.
Havishmadbhirmanushybhiragnihi.
Havishmadbhirmanushybhiragnihi.
Yadaschodeti suryaha.
Yadaschodeti suryaha.
Astanyatra cha gacchati.
Astanyatra cha gacchati.
Tandeva sarve arpitaha.
Tamdeva sarve arpitaha.
Tadunanyeti kaschana.
Tadunanyeti kaschana.
Etad vaitat.
Etad vaitat.
Yadeveha tadamutra.
Yadeveha tadamutra.
Yadamutra tadanviha.
Yadamutra tadanviha.
Mrityosa mrityumapnoti.
Mrityosa mrityumapnoti.
Ya iha naneva pashyati.
Ya iha naneva pashyati. Thank you. Okay. So, I'm just muting all of you all to avoid any disturbance. Now we look at this mantra, the 7th mantra. So Aditi. Aditi is the goddess Aditi. Aditi iti. He knows this to be Aditi iti. He knows it to be the goddess Aditi. And Devata Mai. Devata Mai is the totality of all deities. Is the embodiment of all deities. And Ya Sambhavati, that Devata is born, Pranena. So Prana is here Samashti Prana. Samashti Pranena. Samashti Prana is, what is the other name for Samashti Prana? One has to start exercising one's
Hiranyagarbha.
Hiranyagarbha. Why is it Hiranyagarbha?
Sukshma Sharira.
Samashti Prana. Prana is Upalakshanam for Sukshma Shariram, and therefore Samashti Sukshma Shariram Hiranyagarbha. So This goddess Aditi, who is born as Hiranyagarbha, Sambhavati Pranena. And how is he born? Vyajayataha. He is born Bhute Bihi, along with the five elements, Panchamahabhuta. What does that Devata do? Pravishya, enters, Guhyam, the heart, and Tishthantim. He enters the heart and resides there. This indeed is that. Etat Vaitat. This indeed is that. So, in simple English, he knows that the Atma is the goddess Aditi, who is the totality of all the deities, born in the form of Hiranyagarbha, born along with the elements, and that Hiranyagarbha, having entered the heart, he resides there. This indeed, O Nachiketas, is that Atma which you are talking about. Okay. Now, if you remember the last mantra, we were describing what, if you go back to the fifth mantra and the sixth mantra, we had said that fifth mantra is a description of what? Fifth mantra describes what? Anybody?
Tatyami.
Ya imam madvadam veda atmanam jivanam antikat ishanam bhuta bhavasya natato vijagupsate.
Is it Jnanapalam?
He the one who knows, who is Brahmanish.
Look at the words. It's staring us in the face. Fifth mantra describes what?
Jnanapalam.
Ishanam bhuta bhavasya. What is that?
He
Lord of the
past and future.
Bhutaha and Bhavyaha. Lord of the past and the future, which is Ishwara. You've forgotten the discussions. I said that mantra number 5 describes Ishwara, otherwise called Antaryami. Okay. And then we also said that mantra number 6 describes what? Hiranyagarbha. Mantra number 7 also describes Hiranyagarbha. Okay, so this, don't forget, this discussion is about the Samashti Sukshma Shariram, Samashti Karna Shariram, which was this Samashti Karna Shariram, which was Antaryami, Antaryami is also called Ishwara. Remember that when just the name Ishwara is used, Ishwara is used, it is the very base. It is the Antaryami, that which pervades both Hiranyagarbha and Virat. So whenever you say Ishwara or Antaryami, it is the firstborn from, it is the first, the cause, the primal cause from which Hiranyagarbha is born. Hiranyagarbha is of course taken as firstborn. Antaryami is never born, therefore that is not said. Okay, so Antaryami is Ishwara, the unborn, which is the Samashti Karma Shariram, universal causal body. And then is from that Antaryami is born Hiranyagarbha. That was discussed in mantra number 6. And number 7 is carrying on the discussion of Hiranyagarbha. So, ye pranena sambhavati. This Hiranyagarbha is the total prana tattva. Right? Because Hiranyagarbha is total prana tattvam and prana represents life, that is why in our culture, all forms of life are respected as Hiranyagarbha. Because Hiranyagarbha is the totality, the Samashti total prana. Right? And therefore, individual prana is also respected because it is the individual pranas, the Vyashti prana, which altogether become the Samashti prana, Hiranyagarbha. Because of this respect for life, that is why Ahimsa Paramo Dharmaha. Ahimsa is a sacred value for us. So, prana anywhere is a representation of Hiranyagarbha only. Now, the point is, you might ask, what about, do we necessarily respect prana everywhere? No. When you are sick and it's a bacterial infection, you take antibiotics. Are you not killing that particular bacteria, which is also jiva? Or if you are spraying some insecticides, Are you not killing the insects and the mosquitoes? Yes, you are. So that is definitely papam. But these are what is, and Shastram is wise. It knows that certain forms of violence are necessary for us to survive. And therefore, there is a special name given for necessary evil. This is an unavoidable papam. What is the special name? We have discussed it earlier also. The special name for unavoidable papam. Nobody remembers. Sorry? No. It is Suna. 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 Long Su and Na. Suna. And for Suna, what is the prashitam? It is you do all sort of prashitam karma, right? And for this Suna, that is why we do Panchamahayagnya. To do penance for this unavoidable papam that we do. Okay, so that's something which you should remember. The word Suna, we have to remember because that word will appear again and again and again in almost all of Shankara's references to Upanishads. Then Aditi. So Aditi is, it's here the Bhokta. So there is a word called Adanam. Adanam means to experience. And in the male part, the male experiencer is called Bhokta, and Aditi is the feminine gender. So Aditi is also Bhokta. So that you will remember. Aditi here means the experiencer of the world. And Devata Mai. Literally Devata Mai means full of Devatas. And if you are referring, we can first, for ease of understanding, go to the Sukshma Shariram. When you say Sukshma Shariram is full of Devatas, what is being said? Come on, guys.
There are the presiding deities of all the different indriyas.
Excellent. So how many organs are there in Sukshma Shariram?
10 plus 4.
No, 9.
Come on. Tattva Bodha.
Karmendriya,
Panchakarmendriya, 5. Panchagyanendriya, 5.
Antakarna.
Pancha
Prana.
Prana, 15.
The fourth one.
Antakarnam is how many?
4.
4. Okay, so it can be either 2 or 4. So either 17 or 19, depending on how you look at it. So there are these 19 indriyas are there in Sukshma Shariram, and therefore each of these indriyas we know, Tattva said, has got a presiding deity, and therefore the Sukshma Shariram is full of these presiding deities. In other words, Sukshma Shariram consists of all the indriyas, and each indriya has a presiding deity, and that presiding deity also has to reside in the indriya to make it functional, and therefore Devatamai. That is how the word Devatamai is to be understood. It refers to the presiding deities of all the various indriyas in the Sukshma Shariram. And we said for understanding at the Vyashti level, this is how we look at it. But at the macro level also, what is it ultimately? It's a totality of the Vyashti Sukshma Sharirams. And therefore, Samashti Sukshma Shariram also, or rather Samashti Sukshma Prapancha, has also these 17 or 19 presiding deities, and therefore Devatamai. Okay. Macro and micro, Vyashti and Samashti are very similar. So since each Indriya in the Vyashti has got a presiding deity called the Devata, we must remember that in the Samashti also there will be these presiding deities. And these 19 Devatas at the Samashti level make up what? Make up Hiranyagarbha. Therefore, this Hiranyagarbha has these 19 Devatas. And therefore, Hiranyagarbha is called Devatamai, full of Devatas. The understanding is from Vyashti level because easier for us to understand, but ultimately here we are talking about Hiranyagarbha, so the understanding has to be taken to Samashti level. And Etad Vaitat. He says this Hiranyagarbha also is Atma. It does not exist separate from Atma, and that Atma alone I am. I am also in the form of Hiranyagarbha. And of course the other lines are the same. So remember, this we have to very clearly understand. So, ya pranena sambhavati Aditir Devatamai, ya sambhavati pranena, who is born in the form of Hiranyagarbha and born along with the elements. Therefore, Pravishya, having entered the heart, Hiranyagarbha resides there. Etad Vaitatu. This Hiranyagarbha, who is the Sakshi Chaitanyam, that alone is the Atma that you are asking about. Nachiketaha. Okay. Now we look at the 8th mantra. So here, Jata Vedaha. What is Jata Vedaha? It's a name for a Devata. Who is the Devata? We haven't come across this before. So, okay, Jata Veda is another name for Agni Devata. Okay. So, Jata Vedaha, the fire. Then, Aranyo Nihitaha. So, Nihitaha, Aranyoho. Aranyoho is dual case for Arani. What is Arani?
The wood. Fire.
Instrument to start fire.
Fire is
To start fire.
Where did we come across the Uttara Arani and the Adho Arani?
Mundakopanishad.
Upanishad. So you should be familiar with the concept, okay? Arani is, the Aranis, Aranyoho refers to two pieces of wood, and there are two Aranis basically. One is the lower Arani, which is a block of wood with a small hole in it, and one is the higher Arani, which is like a rod. And the Arani, the higher Arani is put into the lower Arani and rotated, and that creates a fire. So this fire, Jata Deva, the Agni Devata, Nihita Aranyoho, which is present in these two pieces of wood, Subhrataha, is carefully maintained. So maintained or looked after. Incidentally, the word Bhrataha is Bharta, the husband. Looked after, just like Eva, just like Garbaha Garbhinibihi, just like the Garbhinibihi, the pregnant lady, Garbaha looks after the fetus. And Agnihi, that particular Agni, that Jata Vedaha, Dive Dive Edyaha, is daily worshipped Manushyabihi by all those people. Havishmadbihi. Havishmadbihi is the one who gives Havish every day, which means the ritualist. The one who is the Karma Kandi. He worships this Agni every day. And also Jagravadbihi, the ones who meditate, Upasana. So both Karma Kandis who are doing Karma and who are doing Upasana or who are doing both, they worship this Agni. And Etadvai Tat, that Agni indeed is that Atma which you are asking about in Nachiketas. Okay, now let's see what it means. We are saying here that the entire material universe is no different from Atma. And this message is being given in the language of the Shastram. Here we are seeing in the various mantras, the universe has been divided into three portions. Karana Prapancha, that is the causal universe, Sukshma Prapancha, the subtle universe, and Sthula Prapancha, the gross universe. So we have looked at Ishwara and Hiranyagarbha so far. Now here, actually I should also point out that, which I did, I think, that the ninth mantra is also Hiranyagarbha. Okay. So 6th and 7th and 9th mantra are Hiranyagarbha. They should have come in that order, but we don't, criticize the Upanishad. So 8th mantra is basically Virat. So instead of giving Antaryami, so then Hiranyagarbha and then Virat, 6, 7 and 9 are actually Hiranyagarbha mantras. But in the middle he has inserted Virat. So since we look at it this way, since Hiranyagarbha has already been talked about in mantra 6 and mantra 7, it is okay to introduce the Virat here, even though the subject is not over. And here a very symbolic language is being used. This Agni, Jata Vedaha, is symbolizing Virat. And this mantra is defining Virat as Agni. Why should one choose Agni as Virat, as a symbol of Virat? What is Virat? Virat is Vishwarupa Ishwara. Okay, and what is this Agni? This Agni is that Agni which is worshipped both outside us and inside us, indicating that Virat Rupa Ishwara is all pervading. Now, outside us, when I say I worship Agni outside us, what do I mean? I mean it is the Yaga Agni, the Agni which is present in every Vedic ritual, external sacred fire. Right? And that Agni is present where? Aranyoho, in the two pieces of wood. I think I mentioned earlier also that even the wood is prescribed in the Karma Kanda. The lower Arani has to be made of Ashwatha Vrix. We came across that particular name somewhere. Where was that?
The chapter
13 and Mundaka Upanishad.
Yes, chapter 15 and the Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita and Mundaka Upanishad. So Ashwatha tree, the wood from the Ashwatha tree is used for the lower Arani, the lower piece of wood, the one in which the hole is kept. And it is a steady one in the lower position because it doesn't move. And there is a wood called Shami. So Shami Vrikshaha, the Shami tree, from there the upper, the Urdha Arni, the upper Arni is carved out. And this upper Arni is like a rod and it fits into the lower Arni. Then when you rotate the upper Arni, in the lower Arni, there will be friction, sparks will come. And from the sparks, you have to carefully kindle the fire. So these two blocks, since they are the very block from which the fire is produced, is taken as the residence of the Yaga Agni. Yaga Agni is a special Agni meant for use only in the Yaga. And therefore, in a Yaga, you cannot use a lighter or a matchbox. You have to have the fire kindled in this particular manner only. According to the Veda, Karma Kanda says, the Yaga Yagni has to be used. Yaga Yagni is residing in this pieces of wood only. And therefore, only from that piece of wood can you produce the fire which you use for a Yaga. And this Virata Agni is worshipped by ritualists. That is the external worship. What is the internal Agni? It is the internal digestive fire. And that internal digestive fire is meditated upon by the Upasaka. So the ritualist, the Karma Kandi, he worships the external Agni, and the ritualist of the Karma Kandi, who is a Upasaka also, he worships the internal Agni also. Why internal Agni? Because stomach has Vaishvanara Agni. We are carrying Virat Ishwara with us always in the form of a digestive fire. And that is why, according to Shastram, you have to treat that Agni Devata who is residing in your stomach very reverentially. Vaishvanara Agni has to be treated reverentially. You cannot offer tamasic food. That is why you cannot eat stale food. You cannot eat tamasic food like meat. You cannot offer liquor. All these things are strictly banned because it is, the whole purpose is to view the digestive fire as Agni Bhagavan himself. And therefore the Upasaka has to be extremely alert. And that is why he gives the example of the pregnant lady. Just like an expecting mother protects the baby by eating properly at the proper time. And even the medicines, if she has to take any, she has to be very careful so that the baby is not harmed. The baby is primary. Hence, all Upasakas are being compared here to expectant mothers, because at least the expectant mother carries the baby only for 9 months. Of course, she looks after the baby for a much longer time. But this Upasaka, he carries that Virat Agni with him for his whole life. And therefore, he's a permanently expecting mother. And then Yamaraj is saying that this Virat is also none other than the Atma. So Jata Vedaha, the sacred fire, present in the two pieces of Arni, in the form of Yaga Agni, is worshipped by the ritualists and is daily worshipped. This is a description of external Virat. That very same Agni is worshipped internally by Jagradvabhi. So that Jagravadbihi is meditator, Upasaka. He also worships. And Etad Vaitat, that is indeed Brahman. And therefore, from there you have to again extract, I alone am Ishwara, I alone am Hiranyagarbha, I alone am Virat. This is I consciousness plus Namarupa alone, which is Virat. Etad Vaitat. This indeed, O Nachiketas, is the Atma that you were asking about. Note that the entire interpretation cannot be done without Shankaracharya. Right? The whole interpretation which we have given, if you just look at this particular verse, that will not come at all. And therefore, Shankara is invaluable as far as these are concerned. Okay, now we look at mantra number 9. Mantra number 9 is going back to Hiranyagarbha. Yataschodeti suryaha astam yatra cha gacchati tam devaha sarve arpitaha tadu nanyeti kaschana etad vaitat. So sarve devaha. In the second line, devaha sarve devaha, all the gods, arpita. So arpita means based. Tam yataha cha are based on, or all the gods have as their substratum, tam yataha cha, that from which Surya Udeti, that entity from which the sun rises, yatra, and in which Suryaha astam gacchati, into which the sun sets. Indeed, who is a participle, indeed, na kaschana atyeti tat. Nothing ever is greater than that. Etad vaitat. This is indeed that Atma in Achiketas, which you were talking about. Okay. So now we are back to Hiranyagarbha. So whenever we are studying this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we should remember 5 is Virat, 5 is Antaryami, 6 and 7 are Hiranyagarbha, 8 is Virat, 9 is again Hiranyagarbha. This should be very clear in our mind so that there is no confusion regarding what we are talking about. And we said earlier that all the presiding devatas of all the Indriyas are the constituents of Hiranyagarbha. And here the mantra is saying that all these individual devatas, all these 19 individual constituents, they are born from Hiranyagarbha, they rest in Hiranyagarbha, and ultimately they also resolve into Hiranyagarbha. So Hiranyagarbha is the samashti, and the individual samashti devatas are part of Hiranyagarbha. And that is how Hiranyagarbha becomes Srishti Karanam, Sthiti Karanam, and Laya Karanam for every single devata. Okay. Here, talking about the devatas, not about the universe. We are saying that Hiranyagarbha is the Srishti Karanam, that is the cause of creation, the Sthiti Karanam, the cause of maintenance, existence, and the Laya Karanam, the cause of the resolution ground for every Samashti Devata. And among all the Devatas, the prominent one, the most sacred one, why? Because it's the first Devata that you see every morning is what? Surya Devata. And the Surya Devata is the presiding deity of the eyes. And that is why we worship Surya daily. Aditya Hridayam is there. Surya Namaskara is there. And for darshan of Surya Devata, everybody can have darshan simply by opening his eyes and looking outside. And therefore, Suryaha yathat cha udeti. Yataha here refers to Hiranyagarbha. Suryaha udeti, from where? From Hiranyagarbha. Udeti means rises. The sun rises, the sun is born from Hiranyagarbha. And yatra astam gacchati. That same Hiranyagarbha, that same sun, Surya, it also sets into Hiranyagarbha. Therefore, Udeti, Surya Udeti, represents Hiranyagarbha being the Srishti Karanam, the cause of creation of the Surya Devata, representing all the other Devatas. All the 19 Devatas are being represented here by the sun. And Yatra astam gacchati. Into that Hiranyagarbha alone, Suryaha astam gacchati. The sun sets. All the 19 devatas, they resolve into this Hiranyagarbha alone. And therefore Hiranyagarbha is Layakaranam. So why do we say rises and resolves should be understood at Srishti and Pralaya? It is not the daily rising of the sun that we are talking about. We are talking about the Surya Devata. When is Surya Devata born? At Srishti. When does Surya Devata get resolved? At Pralaya. So sun is born out of and resolves into Hiranyagarbha only. And so he says, Devaha sarve tam arpitaha. Now, arpitaha here is the that which is the cause of sustenance, the support. And therefore, you have talked about Srishti Karanam in Udeti. You have talked about Pralaya Karanam, Laya Karanam in Astham Gacchati. And when you say Arpitaha, you are saying that Hiranyagarbha is support for the existence of all the other devatas. So this is Sthiti Karanam. So Hiranyagarbha is Srishti Karanam, Sthiti Karanam, as well as Laya Karanam of all the devatas. All devatas represented by Surya Devata in this mantra. Surya Devata has to be taken as Upalakshanam, representative of all devatas, all 19 devatas. They are nourished by, sustained by, born from, and resolve into Hiranyagarbha. This great Hiranyagarbha, Etad Vaitat, is none other than that Atma which you were talking about, Nachiketas. Okay. We'll look at the next mantra also, then we'll stop for questions. So the 10th mantra, Yade Veha Tad Yad Iha. So that breakup is Tad Vad Eva. Tad comes from the second line. Tad Yad from the first word. Iha again from the first word. So Tad Yad Iha Eva Amutraha. So Tad Yad Iha literally means that which is here. Tad Yad Iha, that which is here. Eva Amutraha, that alone is there. And Tad Yad Amutraha, third word. Tad Yad Amutraha, that which is there. Anu Tad Anu Iha. So Anviha has to be broken into Tad Anu Iha, that which is there. Tad Yad Amutra Anu Iha, that alone is here. Very beautiful first line. That which is here, that alone is there. That which is there, that alone is here. And Sahaya Pasyati, the one who sees in this manner, Iha Nana Iha, right? The one who sees, Saha Yaha Pasyati, one who sees anything different, which is Iha Nana Iva. Nana means multiples or plurality. So one Saha Ya Pasyati Nana Iva Iha. The one who sees plurality here, what happens to him? Mrityoho Mrityum Apnoti. He goes from death to death. So in simple English, that which is here, that alone is there. That which is there, that alone is here. That is one part of the mantra. The other part says, one who sees plurality over here, one who sees duality here, what happens to him? He goes from death to death. He falls into samsara. So now we have to look at these very cryptic little words. Yad eva iha. That iha. That jivatma chaitanyam. So the understanding is that chaitanyam which is here. What is here? in this individual body. So in this individual body, that consciousness which is here, eva amutraha, that very same consciousness is amutraha there also. And there also means that consciousness which is present in the jiva body, the jiva's vyashti shariram, individual body, that very same consciousness is present in Ishwara shariram, the samashti shariram also. Two names are being used, jiva and Ishwara, but the consciousness is the same. So amutra is the macro, iha is the micro. Iha here represents vyashti shariram. Amutra represents samashti shariram, which is Ishwara shariram. So what he is saying is that in the jiva shariram as well as in the Ishwara shariram, the same entity is there, which is consciousness alone. And therefore, there is a difference only in name and form. There is no difference in the vastu, in the substance, because the vastu is nothing but consciousness alone. Similarly, the second part of it, yad amutraha, that which is found in the samashti Ishwara, in the universal body which is Ishwara, tad anu iha, that itself is found here also in the jiva's body. Two sentences. Second one is a repetition in a different manner, just for emphasis. What is that consciousness in the jiva's body? Is the same consciousness in Ishwara's body. Second part is that consciousness in Ishwara's body is the same consciousness in the jiva's body. That has to be understood. There is no duality at all. Everything is one only. That you have to supply here. That is not said in the mantra. But he gives what happens if you do not perceive in that manner. If you do not perceive that there is no duality at all in this universe, what happens? He says, yaha iha nana eva pashyati. The one who sees plurality, differences, duality in Jivatma and Paramatma, the one who sees them differently as different realities, right? You must understand that transactionally, you see them differently. For transactional purposes, the Jiva and Ishvara can be viewed differently. You can use the ocean wave for surfing, but as long as you know that what you are using, what the wave that you're using for surfing, as long as you know that there is really no wave, it is only water, everything is fine. And if you don't do that, if you think the wave is different from the water, if you think the Jivatma is different from Paramatma, then there is a problem. Samrityum mrityoho mrityum apnoti. He goes from death to death. Means he will be confined to a mortal life, which means he will be born in samsara, reborn in samsara, die in samsara, and be reborn again. Okay. So here I'll just again recall what we said in the last class. We have two things, Vyashti and Samashti. At the Vyashti level, the Karana Shariram is called Avidya. At the Samashti level, the Karana Shariram is called Maya. Avidya is the Vyashti level, Karana Shariram is predominantly Avarna Shakti. Okay, we must remember the Avidya is Avarna Pradhanam. Maya has two Shaktis, Vikshepa and Avidya. At the individual level, at the level of the Vyashti Karana Shariram called Avidya is predominantly oriented towards Avaranam, the veiling power, while Maya at the Samashti level is predominantly Vikshepa Pradhana. Predominantly Vikshepa. The two Shaktis are different in proportion. They are both there, but for the individual causal body, the Shakti is predominantly Avarana. For the universal causal body, the Shakti is predominantly Vikshepa. And that is why we said the last verse, Ishwara, in Ishwara, Maya is there. Anatma is there. In Jiva also Anatma is there. In Jagat also Anatma is there. In all the three, Ishwara, Jiva and Jagat, basically all three are there. The only difference is Ishwara, the Maya is predominantly Sattva oriented. In Jiva, Maya, or correct name, Avidya, is Rajas predominant. And in Jagat, Maya is Tamas predominant. Okay. So here we will stop. In case any questions are there.
Acharya, may I ask?
Yes, please go
This
ahead.
is kind of an exception to that statement, Yatha Pinde Tata Brahmande, as in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm.
Yeah.
Because Avarna is one thing, Vikshepa is another thing. And
But both are there. So when you say Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande, you are saying Maya is there in both the places. Anatma is there in both the places. Which part, which function of the Anatma is predominant, that is being explained here.
right. So that's avidya is not avidya at samashti level.
Avidya is avidya at samashti level. Avidya is not avarana pradhanam. How do you know? What is the proof that at samashti level, that is Maya, the predominant Shakti is not avarana? How do you know?
Because of the guna pradhana out there.
Yeah, but very simple fact that if avarana was pradhanam, then Ishwara would be a mahasamsari like us. The moment creation is done, having used Vikshepa, avarana would take over and he would forget that he is Ishwara. While in our case, in Jiva, after creation is done, we forget that we are the creator and we become part of the created.
So that's because of the upadhi given.
That is because of the upadhi given. The avidya upadhi is avarana predominant. The Maya upadhi is predominant in Vikshepa. Sattva guna predominant.
Right. And that's exactly why, because it's sattva predominant, therefore it can't be ignorance.
It cannot be ignorant. Absolutely. Okay. Now we have some time, so at least 2 verses, Tanmay, 11th and 12th.
Manasai vedamaptavyam.
Manase vedamaptavyam.
Nehananasti kinchana.
Nehananasti kinchana.
Mrityo samrityum gacchati.
Mrityo samrityum gacchati.
Ya iha naneva pashyati.
Ya iva naneva pashyati.
Angushtamatram purushaha.
Angushtamatra purushaha.
Madhya atmani tishtati.
Madhya atmani tishtati.
Ishano bhuta bhavyasya.
Ishano bhuta bhavyasya.
Na tato vijugupsate.
Tato vijugupsate.
Etad vaitat.
Etad vaitat. Okay. So, verse number 11. What do we say? Idam. Idam aptavyam. So, aptavyam is something which has to be obtained, which has to be worked for. That is a suffix avyam. So, aptavyam. This has to be attained. How? Manasa eva. So, that first line, first word is to be broken up properly. Manasa eva idam aptavyam. Manasa eva idam aptavyam. So rearranging that, idam aptavyam manasa eva. This has to be attained through the mind alone. Manasa eva. Asti na nana kinchan iha. Asti na kinchan nana heva. So not even the smallest plurality is there over here. Asti na nana kinchaniha. In this world, there is not even the smallest trace of plurality. Saha yaha pasyati. One who sees this, sees what? Like before. Iha nana eva. One who sees plurality over here. So the first portion is, it's a statement that there is no plurality over here at all. And this is to be understood by the mind alone. What happens to the person who is unable to see this? Saha yaha pasyati iha nana eva. One who sees plurality here or duality here, what happens to him? Gacchati mrityoho mrityu. It's similar like the last one. One who sees duality goes from death to death, is reborn again and again, is caught up in mortality. Why? Neha na iha nana kinchana asti. In this universe, there is no duality at all. There is no plurality at all. You may experience duality. You may experience multiplicity. But Vedanta says experience of multiplicity does not prove the existence of multiplicity. It's a very important statement for us, for all Vedantics. Anything which you experience need not be the reality. So I may experience duality, but the experience of duality should not be understood as the existence of duality. For example, the example which we always take, the sunrise. Our eyes experience the sun rising. What is the fact? The sun does not move, the earth is rotating, right? Similarly, when we stand on this earth, it is a very stationary earth, absolutely no problems. There is no movement at all. But we know that the earth is hurtling through space at an incredible speed, going in an orbit. We experience a blue sky, but we know there is no such thing as a blue sky. Therefore, kinchana nana asti. There is no plurality here at all. The plurality, remember, will not go away after moksha, right? Your eyes and your ears and your sense organs will still see everything as dualistic. But behind all that, you will have the understanding that there is no duality at all. Advaitam will be the substratum, the support behind all the Dvaitam experiences. We all think that what we see through our sense organs is a reality. We are all deceived by the sense organs because we see the reality as different from what is real. What we see is something which is different from what is really there. And what is really there, that knowledge has to be gained. He is saying that you cannot trust your sense organs, because sense organs are designed to go outwards and they will necessarily show you plurality and multiplicity. But one has to gain the knowledge that there is no duality at all. How? Manasa eva idam aptavyam. The mind is the instrument through which you have to acquire that knowledge. And one cannot acquire the knowledge excepting if your mind is in the avastha where the mind is available for learning. Therefore, manasa eva, the mind has to be available for you in jagrad avastha. And you can learn with the help of the shastra and of course the teacher. Hence, manasa eva, with this mind alone, idam, this knowledge of non-duality, aptavyam, one has to acquire. So here Yamraj has established that the multiple universe is experientially available, but what is available, what is apparent, is not necessarily the truth. It is only an appearance, and we call it abhasa, appearance. So there is dvaita abhasa, appearance of more than one substance, but there is only ekavastu, there is only one substance. A Vedantic should always remember that perceiving duality is never a problem, because the sense organs are so designed that they can perceive plurality. But one has to understand, using one's intellect, that the perceived plurality is mithya only. Right? You remember that Shastram says that Brahman cannot be known through any pramana. Again and again and again we have aprameyam, Krishna had said. That Atma, that Brahman, cannot be known through any pramanam at all. That is a very important statement. Because there are only two things. What are they? The knower and the known. And if Brahman cannot be known through any pramanam, that Brahman has to be the knower alone, right? The statement which says that Brahman cannot be known through any pramanam has to be understood as there are only two things, the knower and the known. And if Brahman cannot be known, then it must be the knower. Otherwise, if Brahman is not the knower, then because of that Shastra Vakyam which says that Brahman can never be known, you will have a Brahman which is totally unknowable. And a completely unknowable Brahman is of no use to anybody. So necessarily that Brahman has to be the knower only. Brahman has to be I have to be Brahman. Aham Brahma Asmi. So with this we'll stop for today. Any questions?
Acharya, one can.
Om Raviji,
Yes.
very beautiful explanation. We'll go through the recordings to understand a few points which I could not grasp immediately.
Surely. Tanmay, you were saying?
Yeah, Acharya, I was saying that since you just explained this right now in this manner, so one can understand Brahman as the pramatra and the pramanam itself, knowledge itself, and that is what it's called, jnana swarupa.
Yeah,
In
it
the
is the very
form-
knowledge itself.
But not any of the objects of knowledge.
It cannot be.
Yeah,
Because
because
Shastram says that Brahman is not knowable. Aprameyam.
yes.
So here is where your faith in the Shastram, the Shraddha becomes very strong, because here we are relying upon Shastra Vakyam, Shastra statement that Brahman is not knowable at all through any pramanam. And yet, I know Brahman. As what? As myself alone. If I say I know Brahman as an object, then I am violating Shastra Pramanam. And if I say I cannot know Brahman, then that Shastra Pramanam is of no use to me, because unknown Brahman, a totally unknowable Brahman is of no use to me. And therefore, the only conclusion is that if Shastram has to make sense, when it says that Brahman cannot be known, then you have to go back to the fact that there is only Drik and Drishya. And if Drishya cannot be known, what remains must be Brahman. What remains is only Drik. That is me. That is I. So, a very beautiful way of explaining that, hey, Nachiketas, you are Atma alone.
Acharya, then the so-called problem being the upadhis, again kind of transversing this over the different other different schools of thought and practices, etc., where
Yes.
it's basically the ahankara trying to become the Ishwar upadhi or the Devata upadhi,
Yes.
rather than recognizing the consciousness aspect of it.
So there the problem is that in every other darshana, this question of Ishwara and Jiva, Paramatma and Jiva is there everywhere. Okay, all the darshanas have Paramatma and Jivatma, but both are real. In all other darshanas, Ishwara is real and Jivatma is real. And therefore, how can a real Jivatma suddenly become Paramatma is always a question of debate. While for us, Jivatma is Mithya. And Jivatma is not really there. Only Paramatma is there. So there is no conflict at all for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, not conflict for us, but trying to trying to understand where is the logic in the others, where they're trying to have an experience. What is it that you're experiencing then at that point in time? Is kind of what the question is.
Yes, so that is the biggest problem in any darshanam. How do we explain that I experience? That is why this concept of you being the totality is not there in most of the others. You have Dvaita, which says Lord and I are different. You have Vishishta Dvaita, which says I am part of the Lord. Only Vedantic has the guts to stand up and say, no, I am the entire Lord in totality.
Well, that's why the Sukshma Buddhi, which is of utmost importance.
That is why your Sukshma Buddhi is required. Trained Buddhi.
Thank you, Acharya.
Okay.
Acharya, sorry, one sec.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting. June, you had a question in the Tattva Bodha class last week, I think, which was about, not related to this per se, but you want to ask Acharya here about why Shankaracharya
go ahead.
These 10 Upanishads. Do you want to ask that? Or?
You go ahead. What question was it? Why?
Samaj, I don't remember the question.
Acharya,
What was it about?
That's why the question was that Adi Shankara, he chose these 10 principal Upanishads, which are known as the principal Upanishads. So the question was that why did he choose these particular Upanishads out of everything available?
Well, the answer is the other way around, Because he chose these 10 Upanishads, they are being called the principal Upanishads. It is not that they are the principal Upanishads, so he chose them. He chose 10 Upanishads, he wrote commentaries on them, and so they are now referred to as principal Upanishads. Actually, there is no such thing as principal and subsidiary Upanishad. Every Upanishad carries the same teaching.
The question essentially, I think, was why did he choose these particular ones?
Yes.
Well, you would have asked the same question had he chosen another set of 10 also. So he had to choose something, right? And these Upanishads are very representative. It contains, especially Brihadaranyaka. Brihadaranyaka contains a summary of all the Upanishads. And therefore, as you go through the Upanishads, you'll realize that it is the same teaching. There's nothing different in any. In fact, Arvind said it very nicely some time back to me. He said, wherever I go and listen to any class, it is the same old teaching. It is the same old teaching. The whole idea is to ram it into our brain that you are Brahman. That is the only teaching. Some Upanishads had to be chosen. These are all very beautiful Upanishads. And the Shankara Bhashyam on Upanishads like Taittiriya, Brihadaranyaka, they are all very beautiful pieces of art, you might call it. So we'll see some of them. In fact, most people think that he wrote only one commentary, right? But the Upanishad called Kena Upanishad, he has written 2 different commentaries. So that it's not just one. So one is on the words and one is on theme. Thematic commentary is also there by Shankaracharya.
So there was no specific reason for choosing.
So he has never said. So it has to be a presumption only that he thought that these 10 Upanishads were sufficient to give us the entire overview of the Vedas. And also there's one more reason. These 10 Upanishads will find their place in quotations in Brahma Sutras. Vyasacharya's Brahma Sutra quotes extensively from these Upanishads, but it also quotes from other Upanishads. Shvetashvatara Upanishad also is there in Brahma Sutra. So it's not that only these 10 find their place in Brahma Sutra, these 10 also find, but extensively. Okay.
Om Raviji.
Yes, Vinita.
Then Etat Dvaitat itself could be a Mahavakya.
Which one?
Etat Dvaitat.
No,
This is
a
it.
Mahavakyam
No?
has got a very specific definition. It is
Right.
Jivatma, it has to express the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
only it is possible.
Okay.
to call it a
Thank you.
Mahavakya.
Thank you.
Okay, with this we'll stop for today. Thank you so much. Om. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you
Om
for your
Tat Sat.
patience.
Om Namah